All right, everybody, what's up? I went hiking over the weekend up in the Catskills. It's about 90 miles north of New York City. Torrential rains, torrential downpour in the morning. By the time I got up there to the area where the trail was, it was still raining. We hiked anyway up a very steep scramble to the top of a mountain. It was a tough, tough hike. 8 miles up a very steep scramble in the mud, in the rain. Most people wouldn't hike on a day like that. I did. Navy SEAL, that's mental training. All right, let's talk a little bit about the markets, and also I want to talk a little bit about behavior. If you go back and you look at the Asian currency crisis, 1997, various currencies were affected. It started with the Thai baht, spread to the Indonesian rupee, the South Korean won, the Philippine peso, I believe it is. All those currencies were affected. If you look at the timeline of that panic, whatever you want to call it, it started about May 1997. Nobody really knows why it started. I mean, a lot of those current countries did have high levels of external debt. What is external debt? That means when you borrow in somebody else's currency, okay? And I will equate this to the Turkish situation now. But some of those countries had very high levels of external debt exceeding 100% of their GDP. By the way, just as an aside here, let me mention that Greece has an external debt of 200% of their GDP. And we had that whole Greek crisis in 2010. That did nothing. That was contained. It was a panic at the time. And if you knew me at the time, if you followed any of my writings, or I guess at that time I was still on Fox News, Fox Business, I said you gotta buy into that. It was a panic. This was 2010. The market was still trying to recover from the financial crash, although it had already bottomed. And I said you got to be long the stock market. You know, this is all going to be contained. The ECB is going to buy the bonds. They have to. Yes, they would buy it with conditions. They imposed brutal austerity and everything else, but there was no solvency crisis. Once the ECB said it was going to buy the bonds, that was it. And don't forget, in the case of Greece, it's not just 200% external debt. It's really all of it is external, because even the debt denominated in euro, Greece is not an issuer of the euro. No country is. Only the ECB is. But anyway, I digress. I'm getting off track here. So yeah, the Asian market crisis, nobody really knows. It was probably something which, another one of these situations, a very tiny risk, got amplified because of herd mentality. The crowd went crazy, mass hysteria. So you had all these currencies, and if you look at charts of these currencies, and you can see them if you go on the St. Louis Fed, their FRED database. You look at the Thai baht, you look at the Indonesian currency, you look at the South Korean currency, you can see all the spikes down. It lasted anywhere from, it started around May with the Thai, then some of them maybe in June, some of them in September, October, and they went until the following year, the collapse, I would say. That was, so anywhere from a 6-month period, could have been a 3-month period for some of them. It could have been a 6-month period. For the Thai, it was like a 6-month. And then it all came back to normal. I mean, some of them never regained fully the exchange rate to the dollar that they had prior to the crisis. But, 60, 70, 80% recovered. And then it went on to trade again normally, and we're back here. So, yeah, if you look at that as a timeline, 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, we're into this thing. Same thing here. And no way I mean, no way the magnitude. Turkish lira, maybe. Anyway, Turkish lira. Turkey, by the way, is a currency issuing nation. Its currency floats. It does have external debt, all right? It had about 55% of its GDP. External debt equates to about 55% of its GDP. Spain has enormous external debt, okay? So once again, we are in this situation of a small risk. What? The sanctions on 2 companies? The tariffs on steel and aluminum? I mean, seriously? Turkey has, what, like an 800 billion GDP? You got sanctions on 2 companies. You have some tariffs. And he doubled the tariffs. I don't know what it is now. If it's 10%, 20%. By the way, let me just backtrack a second. I look at the customs and excise taxes on the daily treasury statement. That is up year over year about 4.7 billion. So that is minuscule. In terms of the overall U.S. economy, that is minuscule. And there is probably normally an increase year over year. Just because of the volume of trade increases. So 4.7 billion so far, the positive gap over last year. So that is very, very minuscule. So you're taking a very, very tiny risk or a tiny impact on overall economies, and the markets are completely magnifying this out of any sort of rational proportion. It's going crazy on this. And I am absolutely certain that everything will follow the path of prior crises that we have seen. It always does. So that's not a problem. The problem is, how do you stay? How do you stick? Well, if you're a novice in this, if you don't have mental game, if you've never been involved in this sort of event, or if you are emotionally weak and needy, in other words, oh, I need to be in that move and I'm not in that move, why didn't I get in that move? You can't do things like that, because then what you do is, that is sort of a self-punishment. You are berating yourself for what is, in most cases, something that you never could have foreseen. Everybody has 20/20 vision. In hindsight, it's true, and they say, oh yeah, that was so easy to see that was coming. Okay? Now, along these lines on the behavioral part, let me go to one specific example. I had a guy who was a subscriber of MMT, and he was a young guy, never really had any success, was kind of bouncing around, tried some other people, didn't like what he saw, came to me. All of a sudden, hey, MMT, it turned his lights on. It was fantastic. He was making money. As a matter of fact, he had lost his job. This guy, he had some personal hardship. He lost his job. He was making money trading using the MMT principles. He said, this is great. I have so much confidence. I'm not afraid of whatever happens to me now, career-wise, because I know I have this as a support. I have the ability in my own self to sustain myself without anything external. I don't need a job. I have proven to myself. I've grasped the principles. It is fantastic. And then I came out with another product called Zombie Trading. Zombie Trading, maybe some of you are subscribers to that. Maybe some of you have tried it or have heard of it. Zombie Trading is a Forex signal service, short-term. We take advantage of known zombie behavior. We know how they're going to behave. So it's short-term. We front-run the zombies and we get out, take their money before they die. So he said, yeah, let me take Zombie Trading, which is a completely different thing. It's short-term. It has stop losses. It's action, action. I've specifically made it for people who want action. So he had that for a while. And after a couple months, he said, Mike, I figured out my own way to kind of customize the signals in Zombie Trading to achieve the outcome that I'm looking for. I said, great, that's fantastic. You know, that's what I want people to do. I give them the knowledge, I give them the information, and they take that, this is called alignment, they align it to their own approach. All right, they use the information, they use the knowledge, and then they incorporate alignment, which is a principle of mental game, and they use that to their own approach. So he's like, great, great. So a few months more passes by. He said, you know, Mike, I don't know. I think I'm going to drop the zombie, but I definitely want to stick with MMT Trader. I think I'm going to drop the zombie, but I'm for sure going to stick with MMT Trader. You see where I'm going with this? So I said, okay, no problem. So he drops the zombies with MMT Trader. More time goes by. Everything's great. Communicate with him on a pretty regular basis. Everything is great. Then this period comes, this difficult, challenging period where you get caught in this kind of market mania. You got to know what to do. Yeah, it's tough. You got the knot in your stomach. You got to know what to do. So then he comes and says, you know what? I got to tell you, I'm leaving MMT Trader because you don't do this, you don't do that, and I don't like waiting. So now I said, well, you don't like waiting? Before you were praising it like crazy, when everything was going smooth and you were making money, you don't like waiting. You had a service where there was a lot of action and you didn't have to wait. You had trades every single day, in and out, in and out. Because MMT Trader, he said, there's not enough trades. We're waiting. We're sitting. We're waiting. I said, you had a service, zombie. You quit that. But now you say there's not enough, there's too much waiting. So what this is it speaks to a question of honesty. Now, I don't care if he's honest with me or not. I mean, I couldn't care less. But the question is, are you honest with yourself? On the one hand, when you say, this is fantastic, this is great, but then it turns out a little sour for you and say, no, it's not good because I don't like waiting, but then you had something at the same time which gave you that action, gave you that in and out, lots of trades, just like ostensibly that's what you wanted, right? Because you said, I don't like waiting. Well, there was a product. Now, the point is, it was never about him, right? It was never about him. He was perfect. He was good. He never had to reflect. He never had to think about his own attitudes and emotions and how he might be not taking responsibility for his own results. It was about the system. So it always comes back to that. It was about the system. It was about the system. It was about the system. It's always about the system. It's a very, folks, it's a very, very hollow and transparent criticism. I mean, think about it. If you say it's about the system and you think that, like somebody who really is experienced in the markets, who has gone through this sort of stuff, if you think that you're fooling that person, if you think you're fooling me when you say things like that, your system's bad. It is so transparent and so obvious that really it's almost comical. You have to sit back and you have to really look at that person and say, wow, like they don't realize what they're saying is just so obviously, blatantly an admission of their own failings and an inability to take responsibility and to be strong and to weather adversity and discomfort. No, it's for them, it's never about them. It's about the system. Not enough, too much waiting. Okay, here's this. No, I don't like this. I want to go back to the other thing. Well, that thing had a total lack of waiting. You had action every single day. The trades were for a few pips. You were in, you were out. The most you had to wait on that was probably an hour. That was it. So it's about honesty. I mean, the road to happiness, I won't even say success. What is success? We all want to be happy in the end. The road to happiness is, number one, the first trait, the first thing you have to embrace is honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, you're never going to get it. You're on a quest for something external. You have decided you will not commit to anything. You need somebody or something to give it to you. You are needy. There is something out there in your brain that is going to roll up to you, and the back door is going to unfold, and out comes success and happiness, and you're just going to be sitting there in your comfortable little chair, and it's going to fall right into your lap. That's what it is. It's all about honesty. Some people get it. I got a couple of guys here who are amazing. Amazing. They pick me up. And they're in the same boat as I am, as the rest of us. They pick me up, sending me emails. Amazing. I got to give out awards, I tell you, because some people really deserve it. Anyway, that's my little story for now. See everybody later. Bye-bye.